Darcy filed a motion to silence me, to take my voice, not my home. I felt the chill of injustice, but my calm was sharper than fear. I walked into court with every receipt, every recording, ready to speak for myself. And trust me, this story is only beginning. Rain drummed against my windshield as I pulled into Merrick's driveway, 15 minutes past the time printed on the invitation. The wipers squeaked across the glass, steady as a metronome. My breath fogged the inside of the car, curling against the cold. 2 gift bags sat on the passenger seat, a soft gray scarf for Isolde and a novel for Lyric. My handwriting on the tags looked calm, but my hands had trembled when I wrote them. I stared at the warm glow of the house, strings of white icicle lights, 3 unfamiliar SUVs in the drive, laughter muffled behind the curtains. "Extra folks tonight," I murmured. I adjusted my curls in the mirror, dabbed at my lipstick, and whispered, "Smile, Dell, and keep it light." I didn't ring the doorbell. Family doesn't ring, I told myself, and the thought felt like a small comfort as I pushed the handle and stepped inside. The smell of rosemary and brown sugar greeted me first, then the sound of glasses clinking. I eased the door shut behind me, careful not to draw attention. From the entryway, I could see straight into the dining room. 8 people sat around the table, silverware gleaming, candles burning low. And there she was, Isolde, standing at the head, raising her glass. "It's so good the old woman didn't come," she said brightly. The laughter that followed was sharp and unembarrassed. My son chuckled, looking down at his phone like a man checking stock prices instead of his mother's face. My wedding china, the one Sarah left me, shone beneath the candlelight. The 3 bottles of Malbec I'd sent them last month were empty on the sideboard. I noticed my usual seat taken by a stranger. Handwritten cards marked every place. None said, "Mom." "Cheers to a drama-free dinner," someone added. "To our home, our way." Another replied. Their voices blended into something light and cruel. For a moment, I couldn't tell if I was breathing. My body went still, the kind of still that comes before a storm. I didn't cough or gasp. I simply turned and closed the door behind me with the gentlest click I could manage. Outside, the air bit at my cheeks. I stood there, my heels sinking slightly into the wet ground. The gift bags hung from my wrist, absurdly festive against the dark. Inside, the laughter rose again, a tinny echo through the wood. I thought, if they tell a room I'm not there, then I won't be. I walked the stone path back to the car. The pine needles stuck to my shoes. The wind tugged at my coat. When I reached the car, I set the gifts on the passenger seat and whispered, "Not tonight." My voice was steady. The dome light dimmed, and I sat there listening to the hum of the rain. Years of life had taught me something. Never confront when you're the only witness. Capture. Don't quarrel. I checked my watch, 7:53 p.m., and noted every detail. Who sat where, what was said, what was mine. I thought of Sarah's china, of grace, and of how people can mistake kindness for weakness. My heart wasn't broken. It was sharpening. Power isn't how loud you speak. It's what your signature can move. I took a slow breath, started the engine, and backed down the driveway. The radio found a Christmas choir singing about peace on earth. "Merry Christmas, Dell," I said softly. Behind me, the house glowed too bright, too warm, and entirely wrong. The wipers kept their rhythm as I left Merrick's cul-de-sac. The road shimmered under the drizzle. Every street lamp wrapped in a faint halo. I told myself, eyes on the road, Dell, and turned down the same streets I'd once taken to drop off homemade pies or pick up Lyric from piano lessons. Tonight, they felt different, like walking through an old photo that no longer wanted me in it. The HOA bulletin board was still dressed in tinsel, the same 3 gold bows, and that chipped sign reminding residents to keep their lawns tidy. Small anchors, small lies of normalcy. The car smelled faintly of pine air freshener and wet wool. I focused on the sound of my own breathing, measured and slow. I wasn't crying. I was cataloging. Thanksgiving. Standing room only for me. Mother's Day. We didn't think you'd want to drive that far. The polite omissions had stacked up like unpaid bills. My rule whispered back to me, don't argue where you can document. Don't bleed where they clap. By the time I turned into my driveway, the dashboard read 8:42 p. I parked inside the garage and sat for a full minute, listening to the metal tick as the engine cooled. When I finally stepped out, the motion light blinked on, bright, loyal, mine. Inside, everything was as I'd left it. Coat on the hall chair, keys in the ceramic dish Sarah made, shoes lined against the baseboard. I placed the 2 gift bags by the console table and added sticky notes. Unopened, I went to the kitchen and turned on the pendant light. The room glowed warm, but silent. I reached for the legal pad from the drawer, yellow pages crisp. Ready. I wrote, Deck 24, 8 p.m. 8 present, phrases heard. I listed each quote exactly as I remembered. No adjectives, no embellishment. It's so good the old woman didn't come. Cheers to a drama-free dinner. Every word now lived on paper. Not in my chest. The act steadied me. I sipped water, looked at Sarah's photo above the counter. Taos, summer light, her hat tilted back. You'd tell me to handle it cleanly, I said out loud. She would have. She'd been practical that way. Then I opened the hall cabinet and pulled out the gray binder, Ray Family Trust. Admin. The smell of toner and old leather hit me as I flipped through tabs. Property, healthcare proxy, disbursements, then special conditions. My finger stopped. The wording was unmistakable. Material disrespect at a family event permits immediate suspension of discretionary support by trustee Delphine Ray. 3 years ago, Sarah had drafted it. I'd initialed, thinking it a formality. Well, I whispered, Merry Christmas to me. I reread it twice. The lawyer's phrasing cold and precise, no anger in it, not just math and law. I added a sticky note that said, Claus Christmas. Not out of spite, just organization. Then I moved to the next page of my pad. 3 calls. First, Harlan Vex, trust attorney, ITES. Second, the bank, temporary suspension of transfers. Third, HOA, permit review for gatherings exceeding guest limits. I drafted each line. I'm invoking Section 5.2 due to documented disrespect on December 24th. I cleaned my pen tip, stacked the notes, and laid the binder open on the table. My kitchen smelled faintly of lemon cleaner and tea. I brewed chamomile instead of coffee. Caffeine was for battles, not clarity. My handwriting stayed steady as I wrote one last line. I won't be the only adult in the room and the only one paying for the room. When I finally turned off the lights, hall, living room, kitchen, the entry lamp stayed on. The binder sat beneath it, a silent promise. I looked once more at Sarah's photo. We wrote it for a reason, I said. Then I set my alarm for 7:30, labeled it binder first, then call. Outside. The rain slowed to a hush. I let the quiet settle around me like armor. At 7:31, I sat at my kitchen table, the trust binder open to special conditions. My pen lay across the page like a latch waiting to be lifted. The sky outside was still gray. Thin light touched the mug beside me. I dialed Harlan Vex's office. His receptionist, brisk and polite, asked for my name. When I said, Section X, Material Disrespect. December 24th. She didn't pause. A soft click, then Harlan's voice. Good morning, Miss Ray. I wondered when this clause would finally earn its keep. We went through the formalities. He read the section word for word, calm and clinical. He instructed me, draft the suspension letter, send by certified email and mail, pause discretionary transfers, document every timestamp. No adjectives, he added. Facts only. I told him. I've already started that way. His chuckle sounded approving, not kind. We agreed on a 10-month release for the letter. When he said goodbye, I felt the same clarity I used to feel balancing a checkbook. Numbers don't lie. The next 2 hours unfolded like a quiet storm. I filled a yellow pad, 7:45 to 7:55 p.m. 8 adults, 2 children. Quote, it's so good the old woman didn't come. I attached the dinner menu card as a photo of my gift tags, a screenshot of my phone location. Humiliation isn't evidence, I reminded myself. Leaving emotions out. My printer hummed, page by page. I built my case. File names precise, dated, time-stamped. I scanned them into a single PDF and sent it to Harlan. His reply came within minutes. Received. Proceeding with trustee suspension letter. By 9:20, the draft was in my inbox. All caps in the subject. Trustee action effective immediately. The wording was exact. Discretionary support suspended pending written acknowledgement of conduct. I reviewed the letter carefully, corrected 1 comma, checked each name, and added 1 line of my own. This action safeguards the integrity of the trust and the dignity of all beneficiaries. I signed it digitally, the way Sarah and I had done everything, clean, deliberate. Harlan sent the certified copies. I printed my own and slipped it behind the binder tab. Paper quiet, decision loud. Then came the call to the bank. My premier banking rep answered on the second ring. I kept my voice even. Pause discretionary transfers to the Ray household per trustee letter dated December 26th. She confirmed. Professional but kind. You're doing this the right way. Ms. Ray. I thanked her, asked for written confirmation, and within minutes received it. Subject line, transfer suspension confirmation. I added it to the packet and logged the details. Agent name, time, duration, follow-up email. My pulse stayed calm, my tone level. Power feels different when it's quiet. Before closing my notebook, I left a voicemail for Merrick. Son, you'll receive an official notice today. We'll handle this through the process. I won't be discussing it by text. I didn't call Isolde. Her words always came wrapped in performance, and I wasn't granting her another stage. I texted Lyric instead. Grandma's fine. Focus on school. I turned my phone face down and took a sip of tea. Jasmine and peppermint rising with the steam. By 10 o'clock, I had done everything. Then the phone began to buzz. First, Isolde's number, then unknown event vendor. A third call. Merrick. I let it all ring out. The screen lit with a message. Mom, what did you do? Vendors are canceling. I stood by the window. The air outside was still. A cold light brushing the pines. The house smelled like paper, tea, and a new beginning. By noon, it wasn't just my signature that changed the day. It was every contract with my name under it. At 12:07 p.m., my inbox chimed. The subject line hit like a gavel. Immediate compliance action. Unpermitted gathering and parking violations. I adjusted my glasses. The reflection of gray daylight flickering on the screen. The HOA rarely reached out unless something was serious or public. I opened the email and skimmed with the detachment of someone who'd been through this process too many times. Noise complaints after quiet hours, overflow parking on private lanes, unregistered event setups, temporary tents, lights, catering trucks. The notice included photos, stamped 12/24, right about the time they were laughing over that toast. I could almost picture the board members reviewing their security feed, their HOA-branded clipboards in hand. The fines were listed in tidy columns, but what mattered most was the warning. Repeat violations may result in gate code suspension. That would mean their guests, their deliveries, even their own cars would need clearance. Each time, a rule is a fence. People only notice it when it keeps them out. I forwarded the email to Harlan Vex. Subject, for file, unrelated to trust but supports pattern of unmanaged conduct. One line, no emotion. Then I downloaded the attached PDF, renamed it HO Compliance Notice 2226 PDF, and filed it under Incident, External Sources. I logged the time, sender, and rule codes in my ledger. Years of property management had trained me to see documentation not as defense, but as language, the only one bureaucracies respect. At 12:20, another notification blinked. The florist first, regretfully canceling future orders tied to your account. Mrs. White, Reye. Then the caterer. Please confirm payment authority given recent trustee status changes. And the rental company chimed in. We require updated authorization. Without your approval, equipment retrieval cannot be rescheduled. I didn't call anyone. I wrote back to each, polite and identical. Trustee funds suspended per letter, dated Dec 26. Do not bill under my name. I copied the text once, pasted it 3 times, and hit send. I sat back, sipped my tea, and let the quiet stretch. The kettle still hummed low on the counter. Outside, the drizzle tapped steady against the window. Then Merrick's name flashed on my phone. I didn't pick up. The texts came rapid fire. Mom, what's happening? The tent people canceled. Followed by, we have a party this weekend. I placed the phone face down. I wasn't angry anymore, just finished. Some lessons can't be taught with hugs. They're written in invoices. At 1:30, my phone buzzed again. This time, an HOA number. I let it roll to voicemail. 10 minutes later, a new message from Merrick. The HOA says we're under review. Did you call them? I texted back. I did not contact them. Handle your compliance directly. It was short, factual, impossible to twist. Seconds later, Isolde's text followed. This is vindictive. You're humiliating us. I smiled faintly. The irony. I opened my notepad and wrote, 1:42 p.m. Dill reframed consequence as malice. Record-keeping isn't pettiness. It's peace. By 2:15, the universe decided to reward consistency. An automated insurance email arrived. Annual policy review. Update name parties for event coverage. I almost laughed. Timing has a sense of humor. I opened the policy portal, confirmed my primary coverage, and deselected their household from event riders. A single click removed them from every future claim. No anger, no speech, just absence. I generated a clean certificate, downloaded it, labeled it Ray Insurance Base Only Optui PDF, and sent it to Harlan with a note. Coverage paired to base, no event riders funded by trustee. He replied within minutes. Understood. Smart move. I poured myself another cup of tea, feeling the weight of years slip off my shoulders like a heavy coat at spring's edge. At 3:20, my phone lit up with a voicemail from the lighting company. Mrs. Gu Ray, should we schedule removal or will your son handle that? I forwarded them the trustee letter, added, services terminated, and thank you for your professionalism. People respond better to politeness than fury. I learned that decades ago, working front desks and filing forms no one else wanted to understand. Then, like clockwork, came the backlash. Merrick again. His voice cracked through the speaker. "You can't do this to family." "Mom, we were celebrating." Wah! I could hear Isolde faintly in the background, saying something about embarrassment. I let it play through, then hit delete. Another call followed. I didn't answer. I sent one message, final, concise. All questions through counsel. Read the letter. Then I silenced my phone completely. I stepped outside, inhaled the cedar-scented air, and felt the mist on my cheeks. Oregon rain always had a way of clearing the noise in my head. Sarah used to say, "Give with open hands, not blindfolds." I said it softly to the gray afternoon, as if she could hear. Back inside, I placed the updated insurance certificate on top of the binder. The stack of documents, neat, layered, deliberate, looked less like paperwork and more like quiet justice. At 4:02, the doorbell rang. 3 sharp presses, the kind you use when you think the house still belongs to you. Through the peephole, I saw exactly what I expected. Isolde on the porch, Merrick behind her, both damp from the drizzle, both performing outrage. I kept the chain on the door. "Neighbors are watching. Delphine," she said in that honeyed tone that always soured at the edges. "Let us in so we can settle this like family," I answered through the crack, voice calm. "We are settling it. Through documents. This home isn't a complaint desk." Her heel nudged closer. Testing the threshold, I lifted a small recorder, clicked it on, and stated the date and time aloud. "Do you consent to being recorded?" Her face faltered, eyes flicking to the red light. Merrick tried the guilt route. "Mom, you always fix things." I met his eyes through the narrow space. "I fixed what was broken. I don't finance what's broken on purpose." I handed him a sealed envelope, copy of the trustee letter, and closed the door. One more entry in my log. 49 p.m. Unauthorized visit. Concluded peacefully. At 5:12, the phone rang. Premier Bank Security. The rep's voice was careful, professional. "Ms. Ray, we're confirming an application for a second lien listing your trust as implicit guarantor." I pressed my palm to the counter, keeping steady. "Who initiated it?" "Application came from your son's address. Ratios don't match. Looks rushed." I exhaled slowly. "Freeze all products tied to my trust unless I approve in writing. Note possible coercion by related party." She typed. I could hear the soft rhythm of the keys. Within minutes, an email arrived with a case number. I forwarded it to Harlan with the subject line, S11, attempted encumbrance post-suspension. A text from Merrick followed almost immediately. "This is getting out of hand." My reply was 5 words, "Then take your hand off it." By 6 o'clock, the bell rang again. This time it was a woman in a navy jacket, badge clipped to her chest. "Sarah Chen, Adult Protective Services," she said. "We received a wellness concern from a family member." I invited her in, offered tea, and gestured to the binder on my table. "I assume this won't take long," I said. She smiled politely. "Just a quick screen, ma'am?" We went through memory questions, functional checks. I drew a perfect clock face without hesitation. Then she asked about finances. I showed her organized statements, automated payments, charitable records. "There were no threats?" she asked. "Only boundaries," I answered. Her pen paused, then she nodded. "No impairment. Report will close as unfounded." Before she left, I took her card, thanked her for professionalism. We both knew what this was, an attempt to weaponize concern. At 7 my phone pinged again, neighborhood app alert. Someone had posted, "Sad to see confusion tearing a family apart, prayers for healing." No names, but everyone knew the story. I didn't engage. Instead, I wrote one message to the HOA manager. If any questions arise, I'm available for factual verification only. A minute later, one of the vendors replied to my earlier correspondence. Thank you for handling this professionally. Documentation helps prevent conflict. I forwarded his note to Harlan, then texted Lyric, grown folks are handling grown folk problems. You just focus on school. Rain traced soft patterns down the glass. The street lamps turned them silver. My house hummed with stillness. At 8:05, another knock. A man in a wet cap, clipboard in hand. Ms. Ray, service for you. I signed the handheld and took the manila envelope. Inside was a cheaply written cease and desist, accusing me of interfering with marital expectations. I almost laughed. They wanted to drag family into paperwork warfare? Fine. I underlined the weak spots, marked them with blue flags, and filed the set under a new tab. Counter, bad faith. Then I opened my laptop and wrote Harlan, recommend declaratory relief. If they want the rules, we'll play by them. I placed the envelope neatly atop the binder. Outside, the rain thickened, steady as judgment. Inside, every paper sat aligned, each tab a small act of discipline. By morning, they wouldn't just be reading my boundaries, they'd be paying by them. By 8:12 that morning, the courthouse smelled of burnt coffee and wet coats. I met Harlan Vex at security. He handed me a stack of stamped motions, the ink still faintly damp. We'll keep this procedural, he said. No dramatics. I nodded. That was my language. We reviewed our binder on a narrow hallway bench. HOA violations, vendor terminations, bank fraud alerts, the APS clearance. Each tab was a note in a song I'd written out of necessity. Across the hall, Isolde sat beside Merrick, their lawyer leafing through loose papers like a magician searching for a missing card. The judge entered with brisk authority. We're here to address financial control and contact boundaries, she said. My heart didn't race. I'd already lived the hardest parts. Harlan began methodically. The December 24th incident, the suspension letter, the failed lien attempt, the welfare check that cleared me. His words were clean, sharp, verbs instead of adjectives. Suspend, notify, document. He presented everything in order, like steps in a dance no one else had practiced. Opposing counsel tried sentiment. Our clients relied on customary support. The judge leaned forward. Is it written anywhere? Silence stretched. Then the flimsy stack of texts appeared. Half apologies, half requests. I felt the shift when the judge's tone cooled. Consequences are not cruelty when tethered to agreements. I wrote it down. That line would stay with me longer than any apology. When the recess bell rang, we moved into mediation. The mediator invited any clarifying materials. I set my small recorder on the table, pressed play, and let their laughter fill the sterile room. It's so good the old woman didn't come. The sound cracked through the air, familiar and cold. Merrick's gaze fell to his hands. Isolde's lawyer stammered something about legality. Harlan cited Oregon's one-party consent. I added, quietly, I chose not to fight at dinner. I chose to document. The mediator nodded, writing down pattern of exclusion, substantiated. Isolde muttered, It was a joke. The mediator didn't look up. Jokes don't explain loan applications. We left that room without raising voices, but the balance had already shifted. Back before the judge after lunch, the clerk delivered a note from Chambers. A blogger had emailed about an elder meltdown. Harlan didn't flinch. He produced 3 pages, the APS letter clearing me, the bank's fraud case summary, and the HOA notice citing only Merrick's address. One by one, the judge reviewed and set them aside. Let the record show, she said. No impairment, no misconduct. Then came the order. A temporary payment plan of $2,000 per month to the trustee account, revocation of shared digital access, and a clear warning: any future encumbrance will be treated as bad faith. I caught Isolde's eyes for a second. The power she'd mistaken for silence now had legal teeth. Outside, rain softened into a steady curtain. Merrick approached as I reached my car. "Mom, we can fix this." His voice cracked somewhere between pride and fear. I looked at him evenly. "Start with an apology, son, and a plan that doesn't include my wallet." Behind him, Isolde leaned on their car, arms crossed, jaw tight. I felt no anger, only distance earned. Harlan walked up, folder under his arm. "We'll monitor payments," he said. "Expect noise, but don't answer it." My phone buzzed. The HOA confirmed the code reset. Vendors sent confirmations marked, "per court order." I scrolled past them to a text from Lyric. "Grandma, you're steel." I smiled, letting the words settle where old wounds used to live. At 5:12, another email slid into my inbox. Subject line: proposed settlement terms. The sender's name wasn't Merrick or Isolde. It belonged to someone who frightened even them. The morning after the hearing, I brewed chicory coffee and opened my inbox. The subject line, proposed settlement terms, sat like a coiled snake. Darcy Klein's email read as if she were doing me a favor: lifetime non-disparagement, co-trustee access for Isolde, and full visibility into my insurance and maintenance budgets. Then came the poison. I'd have to retract my HOA complaints and correct the record with vendors. Each clause I marked in red: control, leverage, silence. A family therapy clause pretended to heal while hiding a fee-shifting trap that would bill me if they won later. I wrote a note on the margin: they want the house more than they want peace. My phone buzzed. Noel from the HOA confirming code resets and vendor log updates. I texted Lyric: "Read something ugly. We're fine. Lunch soon. Bring your coat." By noon, I was at Harlan's office, a war room of yellow tabs and quiet certainty. We sat across the oak desk as he read through each clause. 3 are non-starters, he said, tagging them with red: co-trustee, budget access, and retraction. 2 were workable: mutual non-harassment and a factual-only non-disparagement line. He dictated our counter. Any agreement must uphold the court's ruling. Payments, vendor boundaries, and access limits remain. If they missed payments by 15 days, judgment would enter automatically. If they smeared again, the exhibits would be released publicly. I asked for one grace: that Merrick could speak to me once a month under counsel's watch. "He needs to learn to talk without taking," I said. Harlan adjusted his glasses, nodded. "You're teaching boundaries better than therapy ever could." We set a 72-hour deadline for their response. That afternoon, the smear turned on itself. The blogger who'd called me unstable posted a correction. Readers quoting court records: "Paper doesn't lie." Isolde's boutique went dark with a sign: "Closed for inventory." Yelp reviews echoed the judge's line: "Consequences aren't cruelty." I didn't smile. I archived every link. Merrick's employer issued a written warning after discovering the lien stunt. Pastor Cole left me a kind voicemail. He wouldn't fundraise against a court order, but he'd offer them groceries. Noel emailed again. Vendors were refusing Isolde's calls, all saved on file. I stepped outside, mist soaking my hair, and whispered, "Clarity isn't revenge, it's maintenance." Lyric drove me past Merrick's rental that weekend, a sagging porch, unpaid bills wedged in the doorframe. Merrick looked smaller, like a man who'd run out of excuses. I handed him a budget sheet. "What you can afford without me." He nodded once, eyes wet. Isolde appeared, phone in hand, Darcy's voice spilling through the speaker. "Don't admit fault. I answered her coldly. You can't sue your way into dignity. A neighbor peeked from a balcony. I wanted them to remember one line. He'll be okay when he does okay. Back in the car, Lyric said softly, Grandma, I'm mad and sad, I told her. That's adulthood, holding both and still driving. New Year's morning, the trustee account sat empty until nearly midnight. At 11:52, a half payment appeared, late, short, but honest enough to sting them. I whispered to Sarah's photo. We built this spine together. The next day, Harlan called. Darcy wanted an in-person meeting to clear the air. She arrived without Isolde, with a binder too thick for truth. Her real offer promised a guaranteed payment plan backed by an LLC I didn't recognize. I asked, Is that Isolde's boutique shell? Darcy's smile froze. Harlan slid a business registration printout across the table. Same address. No ghosts paying living debts, I said. She hissed. Then you'll force a sale. I folded my hands. Consequences were always your client's choice. Mine is clarity. Leaving Harlan's office, I saw Merrick waiting near the elevator. No coat, shivering. Mom, Delphine, he corrected himself. I'll sell the car, take night shifts. I'll make it right. For the first time, he wasn't bargaining. He was confessing. You can be better than your worst day, I said. Prove it 3 months in a row. My phone vibrated. Noel's text. Isolde tried to schedule vendors. System blocked her. Order on file. I slipped the phone back into my coat and looked at my son. Finally quiet. Go call the bank. The elevator doors closed, and a new alert flashed on my screen. Darcy had just filed something unexpected. When I opened the docket that morning, the headline almost made me laugh. Darcy had filed an emergency motion asking for a gag order, the return of my house keys, and restoration of family access. She'd twisted my own words into a script about elder confusion, as if I'd spoken in riddles instead of recordable facts. I forwarded the document to Harlan with 3 words. Anti-slap. Today. He called within minutes, already drafting the countersuit. We'll use their own noise against them, he said. I sent him the APS closure letter, the vendor abuse log, and the HOA audit notice. Then I queued one exhibit for public record, a 47-second audio clip where Isolde ordered a landscaper to ignore the old woman. They didn't want truth sealed. They wanted me silenced. That clarified everything. By noon, we were before Judge McCreary again. Darcy's voice dripped concern, insisting this was about family harmony. Harlan countered. It's about safety and fraud prevention. The judge turned to me. Ms. Ray, anything you'd like to add? I stood. Boundaries aren't cruelty, Your Honor. They're the terms of love that survive the damage. Silence followed, thick, respectful. Harlan submitted the APS letter and the vendor logs. The judge listened to the recording privately, her brow lifted at the words, ignore the old woman. Motion denied, she ruled. Keys remain revoked. Interim payments convert to consent judgment upon any default. Fees awarded. Then she added something unexpected. The law protects speech, not manipulation. Ms. Ray, your address stays sealed. Your voice does not. I exhaled slowly, the sound of closure filling my chest. Back at Harlan's office, we finalized the trust lock, S10, the part that made it unbreakable. Every document bore my initials besides Sarah's name, the Delphine and Sarah Ray Charitable Remainder Trust. No family co-signatures, no transparency windows, only quarterly summaries by choice, not demand. The insurance beneficiary aligned with the trust. The HOA code isolation, marked permanent. We even left a small clause for Merrick, full compliance, verified employment, and a future review after 18 months. Harlan slid the last page forward. "Nothing here can be undone by charm," he said. I signed. My grief sat beside me but kept quiet. Finally, a companion, not a weight. Merrick came 2 days later with a cashier's check and an apology that trembled but didn't hide behind screens. "I hurt you and embarrassed myself," he said. I handed him a single page labeled Accountability Plan, 3 on-time payments, an HR compliance letter, counseling proof. We both signed. 15 minutes a month, I told him. No more, no less. He nodded. Isolde's only response came through counsel. No admissions. I didn't bother replying. Her boutique lease was terminated within the week. Donors withdrew a small grant after reading the ruling. I didn't gloat. I simply breathed. Peace has a sound when paper finally stops rustling. On January 10th, I hosted the postponed community dinner at the hall. Seniors from the meals program, Lyric, Noel, a few neighbors. The gumbo simmered like memory, filling the room with pepper and patience. At the center table, I placed Sarah's photo beside a sprig of rosemary. Quiet power isn't silence, I told them. It's stewardship. Lyric read a poem about doors we keep and doors we close. People nodded, a few wiped tears. I donated the court's fee award to the program under Sarah's name. For once, the applause felt like healing, not victory. My phone stayed face down. No one's crisis could reach me tonight. A week later, Judge McCreary's written order arrived. Anti-SLAPP granted, fees affirmed. Contempt warnings issued for any repeat harassment. Harlan filed the last motion, a narrow non-disparagement limited only to falsehoods. Truth remained free. That evening, I walked my yard under a soft rain. The motion lights came on, steady, almost tender. I texted Merrick. Day 1 starts now. His reply came quick. Understood. I hung the spare key on a nail inside my pantry. Symbolic, unreachable. Mine alone. They had wanted my house, my silence, my compliance. What they lost was the right to tell my story for me. The next morning, a courier left a certified letter at my gate. No sender, just my name and the word trustee typed in bold. Inside was a single line. Your late husband's account shows one final transfer, initiated yesterday. My coffee went cold. Who could have moved money from a man gone 10 years?